Yo, what is good, YouTube, and welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we're going to be doing episode number 2 of I Build Your Teams, the series where I build my viewers' teams into the best teams possible for my team unlimited and or competitive play. If you want to be featured in a future episode of this series, make sure you drop a follow to my Twitter. My link is always down in the description, and be on the lookout for a tweet about this series every single Friday afternoon or evening. I do upload this series every single Saturday, so be on the lookout for a tweet about that. Before we hop into it as well, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 2,500 subscriber mark on the channel, pumping out videos for y'all every single day. I'm actually going to be out of town visiting some cousins from like Monday to or Sunday to Wednesday, but I'm still going to be getting content to y'all even then. Have a couple videos that I'm pre-recording so that I can get y'all a video a day on each of those days as well. But once I get back from then, I will be back to daily uploading, or I'm sorry, multiple uploads a day. But for the next few days, because of that, I will probably only have one upload a day, maybe two on one day, but just wanted to let y'all know that. Otherwise, without further ado, let's hop right into it and start off with team number 1. Team number 1, he said he's got 50k. Everyone is fully evo. Team to be defensive first and 3 hunting. Okay, so looking at this squad, he's got some solid players. He's got some guys who I probably look to replace as well. Chris Boucher, he says evoed. Derek Jones is evoed. Monty Morris is evoed. Ron Harper is solid as a defensive point guard. TJ Warren's good. Draymond Green and Serge Ibaka. So first thing that I would say when I look at this squad is you probably need another point guard. Monty Morris is honestly just not going to cut it. Ron Harper I think is fine off the bench. He's 6'6". He's a great defender, so I think you can really run him off the bench and have success with him. But the first thing that I am going to recommend is that you pick up a guy like Fred VanVleet. I think Amethyst Fred VanVleet, probably about 15,000 MT. I'm not exactly sure how much he's going for right now, but I think he's definitely in that price point where he'd be worth picking up to replace Monty Morris, slide him in that starting lineup, and then bring Ron Harper off the bench. Next thing that I would probably look to do, oh, and one other thing I will mention, you're already at the Amethyst token board, I can see, so you're 60 tokens or less away from Kyrie. So once you get to that 60 tokens for Kyrie, make sure you pick up Kyrie as well, so then you can have Fred VanVleet and Kyrie as your point guards. But for the time being, Ron Harper can come off the bench as your backup point guard. You'll be totally cool. Next, I would definitely recommend selling this Richard Hamilton. You can replace him with a guy like Amethyst Jason Richardson, Amethyst Cliff Hagan, Amethyst Julius Erving. Guys like that would be great upgrades. Cliff Hagan is going to be your cheapest option. Jason Richardson is probably going to be your best option, but I might lean closer to a Cliff Hagan type guy who's a knockdown shooter, can also play some defense, just because of the MT situation that you're in. So I'd probably swap Richard Hamilton for Cliff Hagan, basically an equal MT swap. Still leaves you with about 35k MT. At that point, I would probably look to pick up a center to replace Chris Boucher. I don't dislike this Chris Boucher card, but I think he's a little bit undersized. I would much rather you slide a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, who's probably about 15,000 MT. You can slot Karl-Anthony Towns as your backup center, and then him and Ibaka are going to do a better job of protecting the interior. They'll still get they'll still not do an incredible job against your Shaqs, Wilts, and Dikembe's, but they will definitely hold their own and be able to stretch the floor at a very high level as well. So that's probably the next upgrade that I would look to make. And then after that, I think for the time being, you try to hold on to your MT, save it just a little bit. You could also look in the direction of a guy like Darius Miles. You don't have to do that, but you could look in that direction of picking up a Darius Miles to play either instead of Derek Jones or Steven Jackson, depending on who you prefer. But those two guys, Fred VanVleet and Karl-Anthony Towns, would probably be the two main upgrades, as well as replacing the shooting guard position with one of those 3 guys that I named earlier. Next team today comes in from my boy Firestorm. He runs lots of pick and roll with Gobert. He likes to 3 hunt. He's on extreme budget. He has 10k MT in auctions. He says Ibaka and Daryl are coming home this weekend. So first thing I would say, so we're looking at about 13k MT, and the first thing that I will say is, as y'all probably know, those of you who watch my videos, I'm a huge supporter of a 10-man rotation. I don't feel like having 3 guys on the end of your bench is particularly necessary, and especially when those guys are auctionable cards. For example, your Michael Porter Jr., Cade Cunningham. You're probably not going to use these cards much. Run a 10-man rotation. It makes your substitutions easier, and it saves you MT. Sell this MPJ, sell this Cade Cunningham, you're up to 15k MT. The next thing that I would look to do with 15,000 MT is probably I think your point guard position is all right, honestly. VanVleet is good. He says he's picking up Ibaka. Ibaka will slot in here at the starting center. You can bring a Gobert off the bench, and that will sell Lauri Markkanen, which I think will definitely be a good upgrade. And then he says he's getting Daryl Griffith. You plug him here, and you bring Duncan Robinson or Karis LeVert, depending on who you like more, off the bench. All of a sudden, you're looking at closer to 20,000 MT, and I think that gives you a lot more flexibility to try to do some things with your squad. You have Darius Miles here, Gus Gerard, and I think, in all honesty, where I would probably go is looking to pick up a guy like a Jason Richardson or a Julius Erving. Put one of those guys, I think, at the 3, and then move Gus Gerard to your starting 4. You could bring this Bojan Bogdanovic off the bench, or you could even, for example, if you pick up Julius Erving, you plug him in here, you put Gerard at the 4, and then you come down here and you maybe put Honestly, I'd probably put Derek Jones Jr. at the 3, Darius Miles at the 4, and sell Bogdanovich. You sell those players, basically the only player you're buying is a Jason Richardson or a Julius Irving, or even, you don't even really need to do that. I just think that make sure you're maximizing your MT. You sell your Laurie, you sell your Karras or Duncan, depending on who you prefer, and plug your Daryl Griffith in here, plug Serge in here, save your tokens for Kyrie to replace a Devontae Graham, and in the meantime, just try to save your MT, try to be smart, make sure you're running that 10-man lineup, and you can definitely look to try to upgrade that small forward position so you can slide Gus Gerard at power forward at some point. But for right now, I don't think you want to make too many extreme changes. I think you got a nice little budget squad going, so make sure you're being smart with your MT. Next team today comes in from Big Goose. He's got 53,000 MT. He runs a pick and roll offense, and I like Fred VanVleet a ton. Kelly Tripucka, he's all right. Gus Gerard is fine. Vin Baker, I'm not a huge fan of. And then we have Damian Lillard, who's definitely a solid card. David Thompson, I think he's pretty good as well. Duncan is fine. Kevin Love is not good at the 4, I don't think, and Channing Frye is fine. So definitely first thing I would do is sell Kevin Love and D'Angelo Russell. I don't think either of these two guys, for me personally, are worth running. I would probably slide Channing Frye to the starting center position until you can get a guy like Serge Ibaka. And also you could look to pick up a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns or even a Blake Griffin. I think Blake is the better option at center, but Karl-Anthony Towns is the cheaper option. But I'd probably go Blake, actually. Pick up a Blake, see if you can find one with a couple of badges added as well. Plug him in at the starting center position, bring Channing Frye off the bench, and then look to pick up a guy like Cliff Hagan or Jason Richardson to play the 2 for you. Otherwise, I think you're looking all right. The last thing I do for backup power forward position is Darius Miles. So if you replace him with Cliff Hagan or Jay Rich, him with Darius Miles, and Vin Baker with a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, and then try to work your way towards Serge Ibaka and Kyrie Irving, I think your team is going to be looking super solid, and you're going to be well on your way to having a very, very good all-around squad. Next team today comes in from Drips. He's on next. He's got 50K. He likes ISO point guards, 3 and D at shooting guard, power forward, and a good screener at center to run the PNR. Fred and Julius are very badged. I like this. I like the way he's running his team as well, the way he described it. The first thing I will say is looking at this squad, I think your starting lineup is super, super well put together. I think your bench is well put together as well, but there are a couple things that I would change. The Fred through Julius 1 through 3 is totally cool with me, or Fred through Kawhi, I'm sorry, 1 through 3 is really good. Dikembe's best center in the game, arguably, depending on if you like to use inside or if you like to use pops. But Dikembe is a great option. Mitchell Robinson's a super good budget option, and I like the fact that you have Cat as well. So you have a pop center off the bench and an interior center off the bench. The one thing that I notice immediately is I would definitely pick one of these 2 point guards. Again, this goes to that 13-man rotation. The reason I'm not taking issue with him having Cat and Mitchell Robinson, 2 centers off the bench, is because he has a pick and pop center and a pick and roll defensive center, a guy who can match up better against the Shaquille O'Neals and Wilt Chamberlains in the world off the bench. So I like the fact that you're doing that. But the one thing I would definitely make sure I would do is look and decide who you prefer between Kemba Walker and Damian Lillard. Whoever you prefer, plug them in at that backup point guard position and sell the other card. They're going to make you 10,000, 15,000 MT. So then you're going to be looking at closer to 60, 65,000. The next thing that I would do is probably, as much as I like Chris Boucher, I think slotting Jeff Green in here at that backup power forward position is just a much better card. I think he plays the power forward position better. He's quicker. He's going to give you more on the offensive end of the court. Honestly, he's going to give you more on the defensive end of the court, and he's really not much more undersized than Boucher at all. So I personally think that that would definitely be a well-used upgrade, putting him at that backup power forward position. At that point, you've really not spent any MT, and I think your team would be looking better. You've even made MT just by picking a point guard, selling the other one, and then putting Jeff Green at that backup power forward position. And then the one other thing that I would consider doing is it's tough because there's not like a ton of great power forwards right now, but I would definitely say if you have any draft tokens left, make sure you're using those draft tokens so you could look to pick up a guy like Glenn Robinson. If you get Glenn Robinson, or if you can even get Gus Gerard out of Triple Threat Online, one of those free power forward options, and slot them in here for Blake Griffin, all of a sudden you can move Blake to this spot to replace Karl-Anthony Towns, and he can be your pop big off the bench. You sell him, you make even more MT. Now you're looking at close to 80,000 MT. You can look to pick up a badged out Jason Richardson and plug him in at the 2. Things like that. Just continue to upgrade your squad. So definitely try to play for one of those free power forwards, because I think that would be a definite upgrade. But the other things that you can do are just pick a point guard, sell the other one, and slot Jeff Green in at that backup power forward position. Next squad today comes in from Courage, actually Trex, in my Twitch streams. By the way, if y'all don't, make sure y'all go follow me on Twitch. I stream every single day, well, except for the days that I'm going to be out of town, obviously, but I stream basically every single day, so make sure y'all go drop a follow there if you haven't already. He says he's no money spent, 450k MT, doesn't have really a play style, just fives out and run through his point guard. Okay, no money spent with 450k MT is a huge W. The first thing I will say, as a no money spent player, you don't need these guys, Sam Jones and Jerry Sloan. I feel like there are better options. I don't know if you have Marquise Johnson from the extension. If you have him, he could plug in at that backup shooting guard position. Otherwise, I think for the amount of MT these guys are going for, you can pick up a Jason Richardson and a Cliff Hagan, and you're not going to spend that much more MT. It might cost you 10,000 more MT, but you're going to notice a huge upgrade if you make that change. The next thing that I will say is Fred Brown is fine for now. Leave him in there, but I see you have a Ibaka, which means you're close to the diamond token board. So when you can, pick yourself up a Kyrie Irving. You'll notice a difference. He's definitely an upgrade over Fred Brown. They're basically the same card. Kyrie's just a lot better. Then the next thing that I'm looking at with this squad, I really like your 3s and 4s, Kawhi and Glenn, and then Gus Gerard and Draymond is super, super good. But the backup center I think is a little bit weak. I think I will recommend that you do something similar to the way that this guy did, where you have 2 centers off the bench, because you don't have a guy like Dikembe who can be a dominant force. Personally, I only have 1 center off the bench, but my center off the bench is Serge Ibaka. I'm starting Dikembe. But with your team, I probably wouldn't, since you're trying to stay no money spent, I probably wouldn't buy Dikembe. You're still going to be looking at over 400,000 MT, but I think the cheaper, smarter way to go would be to pick up a guy like Rudy Gobert, or if you have the token reward, Mitchell Robinson, plug him in, and then plug in a guy like Blake Griffin. Try to pick one up, badge him out, pick up a slightly badged one so that he's just a little bit better, or even a badged Karl-Anthony Towns who's going to be even cheaper. Pick one of those guys up to play that backup center position instead of Siakam. You're going to notice an upgrade, and then you can have Mitchell Robinson as one of your last 3 players, or even Rudy Gobert, to play that interior defense in case you find yourself in a situation where you need an interior defensive center to try to stop or slow down a Shaquille O'Neal or a Will Chamberlain. Otherwise, I really like the no money spent team. I think you got a lot going for you besides the shooting guard position like I talked about earlier, so make sure you're saving your MT and setting yourself up for success later on this year. Second to last team today comes in from my boy AP. He's got a 50K budget, doesn't grind a lot, so he's going for the budget players. Playstyle is PNR heavy. Everyone is replaceable except for Am Fernie current gen. I find it interesting that you love the Sam Fernie Simon cards, because I'm going to be completely honest, I couldn't stand them. 50K MT though. First thing, sell Duncan Robinson. If you're not using him in your 10-man, get rid of him. He's free MT. It's 2,000-3,000 MT that you could use. Next thing, Terrence Ross is a lot better than LaMelo Ball. No offense to this LaMelo, but I would probably get LaMelo out of there, plug Terrence Ross in here at the starting shooting guard position. Honestly, what I'd actually do is slide Terrence Ross to starting shooting guard position, sell LaMelo, and put Duncan at the backup shooting guard. I think Duncan's a better card than LaMelo, and he's cheaper. So I'd probably definitely do that. Start Terrence Ross, bring Duncan off the bench, sell LaMelo. If you don't want to get rid of Am Fernie, then your point guards are fine, because I love Freddie, obviously. And then Am Fernie's fine off the bench. I know he's big and he can dunk. I just don't think he's that great of a card, but if you're committed to using him, feel free. Tim Hardaway Jr. is solid. Darius Miles I like a lot. Ibaka's good. Boucher, Siakam, and Derrick Jones definitely solid. I would keep Ibaka as your starter for now. Darius Miles is good at the starting power forward, and Tim Hardaway Jr. is a solid card as well. Derrick Jones, Pascal Siakam, and Boucher are decent, not incredible. Again, I'm going to recommend the same thing that I've recommended to a couple people who I've noticed have Ibaka. When you can get Kyrie, get him. I know you don't want to get rid of the Sam Fernie Simons card, but when you get Kyrie, plug him in for Am Fernie. And in the meantime, feel free to keep using the card, but I would definitely plug him in for Am Fernie once you get him. Another thing that I would probably look to do is pick up one of the budget centers that came out today, whether that's Karl-Anthony Towns or Blake Griffin. One of those 2 guys, plug them in at that backup center position. Mitchell Robinson can stay here as your last, as your big defensive center off the bench, but pick up a Karl-Anthony Towns or a Blake Griffin, and that's probably the only MT upgrade that I would actually spend MT on. If you can grind for a guy like Glenn Robinson, Gus Gerard, I know you say you're not grinding much, but if you have the ability to go for one of those guys to play this backup small forward or power forward position, honestly, to start in your lineup and then move one of these guys to the backup small forward or power forward position, that would be a W, but for the time being, Derrick Jones Jr. and Pascal Siakam can hold it down. So basically, switch this center position for an upgraded player like a Cat or a Blake Griffin, and then sell LaMelo, put T-Ross the starting shooting guard, and Duncan Robinson off the bench. And then otherwise, I like your squad. I think you're doing a good job running that budget team. Final team today comes in from Jordan McLaughlin Bernie. He's got 180K MT, trying to figure out the game because he doesn't have a specific play style, and he's grinding for Booker but not Melo or Wilt. All right, I'm not going to worry too much about Booker, because Booker isn't the type of card that I feel like he doesn't matter in terms of your current team, just because you're not going to be able to get the card for another 3 weeks, which is definitely a significant amount of time. But for the time being, you say you got 180K MT. I like this Daryl Griffith. Daryl Griffith is also a guy if any of y'all want to grind. I know he says AP said he doesn't want to grind, but Daryl Griffith would be a great option, his diamond at the shooting guard position. Same thing with this squad. If you're trying to grind, which nobody spent 450K MT, I'm sure you probably are grinding at least a little bit. I would definitely look to get Daryl Griffith. He'd be a free huge upgrade at the shooting guard position. But point being, Kyrie, Daryl Griffith, Glenn Robinson, and Gus Gerard, Serge Ibaka, super great starting lineup. Ron Harper, THJ, Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Boucher off the bench is also a super solid bench. I'm going to recommend the same thing that I've recommended to a few different people in this video, and that is to get rid of this Boucher for a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns or Blake Griffin. I think Blake is the better card. Karl-Anthony Towns is the cheaper option. Either way, try to get a badged version of the card, and then also make sure you have a Rudy Gobert or a Mitchell Robinson so that you can have a little bit of another defensive option at the center position if you need it. So that's the one other thing that I would do, is make sure you're upgrading that center position. Otherwise, you could look to pick up a guy like Fred VanVleet at the point guard position. I think he's a definite upgrade over Harper. I personally prefer VanVleet over Kyrie even. I think Fred VanVleet is really that dude. That's just my personal opinion. I think generally speaking, Kyrie's probably the better card. But for me personally, I adore Fred VanVleet. I prefer him over Kyrie. I think he is so good. Other than that, I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is fine off the bench. Honestly, I think he's got size, he's got defense, and it allows you to save some of your MT. So definitely upgrade that center position and then pick up a guy like Fred VanVleet. And otherwise, it's really up to you. You could look to go after a guy like Jason Richardson is the guy who I keep going back to because I really like that card. You could even look to pick up a Kawhi, slide Glenn to the 4, and bring Gus off the bench to replace Draymond, but I don't think you need to do that. You don't need to make a lot of upgrades. Just upgrade that point guard position, upgrade that center position, and you are going to be sitting pretty. So that is going to do it for this video. Got to 7 different teams in this video, so if I did get to your team, I hope I was able to help. If I wasn't able to get to your team, make sure you drop your team on next week's episode, and I will try to get to it then. But if you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will be back with more 2K content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.